Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Tuesday, everybody. It is March 25th, just 6 days away from April. I'm Jonathan Turner alongside Nathan Wangler. Happy to have you along wherever you're watching, near and far. You are watching Inside the Game on the National Soccer Network, live on Roku, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So there we go. Nathan, it is a beautiful day, or as Jim Carrey would say, a BEAUT-ful day. Remember that movie he was in? Wasn't what the hell was that movie called, man? Oh, The Truman Show.
Yes.
The Truman Show. There it is. But happy to have you along wherever you're watching. And good show on tap here today. We had a good conversation yesterday too, Nathan, talking about U.S. men's national team and how atrocious they've been. You know, I don't know if you can really go anywhere right now in the soccer space and not have discussed for how they've been playing. And the conversation isn't so much about the talent. And while talent is definitely an issue in this country, as far as at least identifying it and getting it on the field, the second part of this that we talked about yesterday at length was the will, the grit, the fight, the heart, the intangibles that are not something you can measure in regards to on a measuring stick, but can be measured in how the game is played and the results on the scoreboard at the end. And that was what we talked at length about yesterday. And I know that we had some comments coming through in TikTok land after the fact. And I'm curious, we almost feel like we should do like, I know we have a mailbag, scenario. We do mailbag, but I almost feel like we should every day, if we get something from TikTok, let's highlight that. Let's create a video back to that TikToker, right? Based on our comments from the show. What are your thoughts on that, Nathan? I mean, I know I'm kind of throwing this out there, but what are your?
Yeah, I mean,
I know you respond a lot too.
Yeah, the majority of our comments we get on our videos. We get some on TikTok Live every now and again. I mean, I had one person that hopped on yesterday that asked a question, and certainly I think is one of our new viewers. So I think we saw an uptick, at least a little bit, in our viewership yesterday. So that's good. I'd love to do a mailbag segment or a quick rundown segment, but I try my best to address the comments that are at least on social media. So, get to all of them. Now, mind you, not all of them are constructive, right? So you can't necessarily dive into all of them. And there are a lot of trolls out there. There are a lot of people that don't really want to engage in the conversation. And then there's also that population that just enjoys seeing the meltdown too. We talked about like the world revels in the fact that the U.S. men's national team in the United States can't really keep up in men's soccer. So there's also that population too. But yeah, I would love to do something like that. I realize we don't want to beat it like a dead horse. And we talked again in length yesterday, right up until pretty much the end of the show about that team and what we thought. And the truth is that there's not much out there that hasn't already been said. And the thing that sucks about, this game is like, okay, they're going to go back and play with their clubs, and now we're just going to have to wait, and my favorite brand of soccer is international. So I love international soccer. But now it's just a waiting game and just figuring out how exactly they approach it. But I thought it was a great conversation, and to kind of pull from what, Taylor Twellman said, as well as Alexi Lalas. I mean, they both kind of said it after the Canada game. And you said it yesterday to open the show, like, this feels like rock bottom. And it's weird because you feel like losing to Trinidad and Tobago in 2018, on a backyard grass field, that just so happened to be too wet for them to win. That would have been rock bottom. Would have figured that would have been rock bottom. No, the last two games feel like rock bottom. And Taylor Twellman actually asked a great question. He goes, like, I don't know, or Alexi Lala said it, I don't know if they necessarily care that much, a lot of the guys that were on the team. And so, that was the most discouraging part about that. And yeah, we can continue to dive into that, but I know we don't want to beat it like a dead horse, but that's just kind of where it is. And that's what it felt like. Like, we can talk about stats, we can talk about all that other stuff, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't seem like there's that extra passion, that extra really drive to care about winning this tournament. I understand it's just CONCACAF, but it has lasting impressions if you go out and choke the way that they did. So yeah, I think that'd be great. But yeah, it's just there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions on it, and I think it kind of expands back to USA Soccer in general. It's not just that team; it's how do we operate. You know, how do we get the best players out there? I don't know.
You know, and as I said before, we don't want to beat a dead horse, but it's still fresh in everyone's mind, and I still feel like it's going to be a relevant conversation for the next 15 months, and every time they play, they're going to be under a microscope, and every player is going to be under a microscope. Every decision is under a microscope, and I don't know what goes on at U.S. Soccer. You know, I can only imagine. You know, I can only imagine what goes on at U.S. Soccer. I mean, but my biggest issue is that we're not making decisions that are in the best interest of the game. We're making them maybe in the best interest of the federation, right? And that's the difference, right? You think of it like from the standpoint, you know, and you can ask this question of any large corporation in the world. It doesn't have to be in the United States; it's anywhere in the world. The disconnect between upper management and lower management, and then all the way down to the employee at the employee level, is significant. It's significant. Like nobody at the top ever really truly knows what the person down at the bottom is going. Right? Nobody. And I can't say that in every organization, but I've been a part of a lot of large corporations, and I can tell you this right now: the decision making that's being done at the top to down, top to bottom, is not ever really. I don't think that they are really thinking about the employee. They're thinking about the bottom line, the profit margins. They're thinking about all these other things that have nothing to do with employee performance.
Mm-hmm.
How the employee is going to deal with it. I remember sitting in meetings where, like, we're getting these new policies, new processes that we had to follow in a sales environment that just didn't make sense. It didn't make sense, but some at the top thought it was a good idea and it makes its way down. And then to hear you're doing it, you're the ones responsible. You're on the front lines of it. And then 3 months later, they're changing it again. But they never took your advice to start off with. Like, if I'm Cindy Cohn at U.S. Soccer, I'm literally gonna drive to Field Grass Pitch USA, Podunk, wherever, go talk to a youth coach who's coaching at ECNL right now. Be like, hey, what are you seeing right now? What changes do you want to see made? All right. And then I'm driving across the country somewhere else and asking a high school soccer coach what she would like to see different. I'm asking these coaches what we should be doing differently. I'm asking again, I am making this effort to find the answers to the problems of U.S. soccer. That's what I'm doing. Now I'm not Cindy Cohn, so I can't do that. But why aren't we doing that? Well, maybe we are. I mean, I don't see it. I mean, nothing about U.S. soccer makes any sense. Nothing. Why are we talked about it yesterday. Why are we bringing in a coach from Argentina? Now, granted, maybe great coach, maybe the greatest coach of all time. Okay, great. But I'm not the greatest American coach of all time. You know what I mean? Do you think Brazil would bring in a non-Brazilian coach? I have to see. I'd have to Google that. My guess is no. My guess is Mexico, the same thing. Countries that will bring in coaches from other nationalities are the ones that have never won.
Yep.
Trying to win.
Yep.
Right? They're trying to do a recipe, right? They're trying to bring in something else, something different, right? They're trying to do that. You think that England's going to bring in a non-English coach? From the UK? I don't know.
Yep.
Have they ever done that? I'd have to review that. I don't. Spain, same thing. Portugal, right? Argentina. Are you going to have a non-Argentinian coach? Now there's something to be said about that. I don't think that we should hang our hats on that. But if we're talking about a style of play, can we play a style of play here in the United States that is better suited for teams in other countries? We asked this question before, Nathan. And I think I got lambasted a little bit about it on social media because I'm like, we got to play our style of play the American way. And while that might not be the best, I think it gets us closer to winning than trying to force ourselves into a system that just doesn't work, or because we're trying to be something that we're not. And I don't know. So when we say rock bottom, I don't know if losing to Canada in the third place game of a Nations League, CONCACAF, whatever, is rock bottom. You know, again, I think not qualifying for the World Cup in 2018, that was rock bottom. That was rock bottom. You not going to a World Cup, that's a big freaking deal. That's a huge deal. So, yeah, I think we've already hit rock bottom. I just still think we're circling the drain. You know, we're still circling it. Yep. And that's the problem, right? That's our problem, is that we don't even recognize that we're still at the rock bottom. We're still there. You know, you can think about this. In 2022, we went to the World Cup with Greg Berhalter, right? Big controversy. He gets suspended. They bring another coach in for a short period of time, right, to come in and handle the reins, so to speak. They bring him back, going through Copa America, right? Loses in Copa America. He gets fired, right? So, that's what happened. We've been in this since 2022. We've been dealing with kind of like this whatever with U.S. men's national soccer. And to be fair, it has not been the same since that World Cup. It has not been. So there's a culture problem. There is a personality problem within U.S. soccer. And it's causing problems. And it's not like this is a team in which can afford to be having that kind of problem. It's not like, if you're a team Brazil, team Argentina, you're going to have some personality problems. You're still going to win some soccer. You're going to still win soccer games.
Yep.
We aren't going to do that. We just aren't good enough. So you're not like a cohesive unit. You're going to get screwed. You're going to lose.
Yeah.
So like that's
with there.
Go ahead.
The smartest person in the room, or the person who thinks they're the smartest person in the room, typically is not. And that's where U.S. soccer is right now. We have smartest person in the room syndrome. Jesse Marsch, we talked about him yesterday. This is a guy who's from the state of Michigan. This is a guy who played on the U.S. men's national team. This is a guy who came up in the American environment. And again, much like we talked about when we chatted with Dean Linke once upon a time, he's a person who's seen the maturation of the game of soccer in the United States over those years because he's been a part of it. Right? He's uniquely experienced that, much like Alexi Lalas, much like Taylor Twellman, much like Clint Dempsey, and specifically Landon Donovan, who I thought had a really good quote yesterday. And I think this quote kind of sums up exactly what is going on right now. So anyways, I think it's ridiculous that Jesse Marsch is not the head coach of this U.S. men's national team because, again, we have smartest person in the room syndrome in USA Soccer. We went and we got the Argentinian guy because, again, we want to do things like everybody else. But you can only go so far with that. And I think it all kind of plays into what Landon Donovan said yesterday, who I think is one of the best, if not the best American soccer player ever. Because I'm so sick of hearing how, quote, talented this group of players is and the amazing clubs they play for. If you aren't going to show up and actually give a blank about playing for your national team, decline the invite, talent is great, pride is better. That is Landon Donovan. That's exactly it. And these are guys at the highest levels that have played for this team that are echoing the sentiment. And it's not just us, right? It's not just media. It's not just fans talking about how they don't care. These are the guys who have been there, done that, who are saying exactly that. They're frustrated after watching those last two games. But U.S. soccer has this sort of it's very much at the highest level. It's the smartest person in the room syndrome. The fact that you didn't hire a Michigan man who's played for the U.S. men's national team, who understands the language and how to get through to these guys. Not that Mauricio Pochettino doesn't speak English. I know he does. That's not what I mean by understanding the language, right? I'm talking about understanding the unique struggles that these guys go through, being Americans and coming up and playing the game here. The fact that you bypass that guy to go get someone like Poch is, again, I think short-sighted, and I think it's smartest person in the room syndrome. Let's face it. You tried to outsmart the rest of the world. You tried to go, well, no, we're better than that. We're going to go get the more qualified guy. And now you're paying the price for it. Okay, so that's my part about U.S. soccer. And then on the youth level, there are too many people. Here's my thing. There are too many people, and I've seen it in the comments of these videos that I posted. They're all saying the same exact thing. The pay-for-play, the model that we have set up for identifying talent and developing talent in the United States is a good boys club. It is a if you are in the club, you're in the club. If you're not in the club, good luck, because you're not getting in. And you have to, there's a certain price tag attached to that. If you want to be on the in club, you got to pay the certain amount of money. And even we were talking about Christian Pulisic specifically the other day. And here's the thing, right? If your parents are affluent, it's not like I got an issue with that. Like, clearly, a lot of them have put themselves in good situations. Now, there's generational wealth. There's all that other stuff. Yeah, we can talk about that. Whatever. Like, I got no issues with that. But, you hear Pulisic's parents talking about how, yeah, we were paying thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars for him to train here and travel here and go there. He didn't necessarily come from a bad place in life. He really did. And a lot of these guys are like that. And it's because, again, they had the means to be a part of that system, to develop them, to get them to the highest level. We created kind of a country club in the sport of soccer in the United States. But that's not going to get us to a point to where we can compete with the rest of the world. It's just not. And so it's amazing to see. And that's, I think the last couple of videos I've done, specifically the reaction to Panama, has kind of been like a social like test, if you will, just to see what everybody else thinks about it. And I know that we talked about the issue of pay for play and identifying true talent. The kid that's in Los Angeles, that's in the park, just shooting the ball up against a tree with his friends. Peter, what's up, man? You're not really all that late to the show. I mean, we're only like 15 16 minutes in, but I mean, what? Yeah.
Well, I mean, you'd be getting written up if you were my company 15 minutes late. I don't know if
you're done, Peter.
I mean, you're telling me you can show up 15 minutes late to a job, and you're not.
Yeah.
That's not quantified.
Hey, sorry, boss. I'm here though. I showed up.
Well,
but we don't
go home now.
We don't have a system in place to really go out and find those kids. And like I've said, I know you can't compare it to other sports, and I know that soccer is its own beast, and it runs differently than every other sport. Peter, what's up? Yeah, if you're not early, you're late. That's the mentality I live by. I'm chronically early everywhere I go. I got this OCD about me. But anyways, that's where it's so discouraging. Because in high school soccer, I think we got great players across the country. I think there are a lot of players who, again, can't necessarily financially afford those positions, and they're just not being recognized. And it's the ability to combine the two things, right? Talent and also the hunger too. Because we have talent, but there was no hunger. At least those last two games that I saw. So how do we get away from that?
Again, here's the fundamental problem, and it's no different than in any other world, okay, or any other world like business situation. Because this is the case. As long as people, right, are the ones who are in these positions, they will always control the power of those decisions, right? So let's talk about this for a second, right? And if you rub your coach the wrong way, think that coach is going to go recommend you to the next level. And I don't mean to be facetious. I'm actually in that rhetorical. Is that it's a fair question. Do you think you rub your coach the wrong way, they're going to go out of their way for you?
No, probably not. No,
probably not. So the reality is if, let's say, your parents rub a coach wrong way, right? Let's say you're hard to coach, but you have the talent. Maybe you just don't get along with that one player, right? Am I going to go out of my way to promote that player to the next level? Probably not. Might have the most talent than anyone you've seen, but that player is hard to deal with, right? So a talent identification, we have systems in this country. We've got ODP, we've got ECNL, we've got MLS Next, we've got ID Camp. We have a lot of places where kids can go and be seen and be evaluated and identified in a way in which will allow them to go up the ladder. What do you call it? The problem is that the system of coaches and evaluators across this country have probably been in those positions for a long period of time. It's no different than if you watch Moneyball, right? If you watch Moneyball and you see how he wants to, the general manager of the Oakland A's wants to change how they do things from a talent identification system and process. Yep. The old guard is like, we can't do that. Like, we can't do that. He's like, I don't have the money. We're not going to replace this person, but what we're going to do is we're going to replace him with X. They found another system in order to find players and identify players, not so much based on overall talent, but about a specific need that team had at a position. Completely changed the game, right? And it allowed Oakland to be, really, a relevant team when they had no business being relevant at all. So it was, but just imagine that across the country. How many coaches across this country who are in these positions who've been doing this for so long, and they're relying on the same type of thing. You know, we experience it on a daily basis in our world when we talk with coaches who have been doing it. They're not used to the media. They're not used to this. They're not used to that. So there's that aspect of this. Then there's that emotional component where, again, you don't like someone, so I'm not going to give them a chance. Right, I'm going to give little Johnny a chance over there instead of little Billy, right? Because Billy, has been mean, or has not fared well in regards to. So is that fair? I mean, if we're talking about identifying talent right now in this country, it's 12, 13, and 14-year-olds are our future, right? Not the 10-year-old. You don't know yet. Maybe you do, but it's 12, 13, 14. That's where like the critical point in development becomes apparent. We're seeing it in women's soccer. The 14-year-old playing soccer at NWSL, right? That 14-year-old. In this country, it's like 11, 12, 13, 14. It's in that kind of like that range. I would argue it's 12, 13, 14. How many kids are developed at 14, psychologically and emotionally, where they can have the capacity to be on, behavior-wise, that always paying attention, being a good kid, not. So why are we allowing that to be a thing? I would imagine that there are players who are late to practice, who maybe not the best teammates, maybe they're full of themselves, maybe they, whatever. Should we really be shooing them away? My guess is that's happening. My guess is that is happening. And where are we going to find these players? Are our ECNL coaches, our ODP coaches, are they actually going on and evaluating players? Or are they only waiting on listening for feedback from coaches? My guess is that there's not enough time in the day. So my guess is they're getting feedback from coaches. Anyone can go and try out for ODP as far as I know. I don't think that there's like a restriction. So you got to pay for that, right? So here's what you got to do. And you can go try out for ODP. ODP is the Olympic Development Program. For anyone who doesn't know what that is where these players have been identified for the longest time. Now, I don't know how much of it is where they're identified anymore, but that's where it was for me growing up, So, and every year they have tryouts. They have like these tryouts where you can make your ODP team, and it costs money. You have to pay to do this. So yeah, the registering for ODP for 2025, 2026, $125. If you register before April 30th, $125. If you register before May 31st, it's $150. If you register before July 15th, $175. So how many kids are not going to go do that because it costs money? Right? How many kids not going to go participate because it costs money? Right. Is that going to prohibit them from going on to playing at the U.S. national level? I would imagine yes. Right? I mean, so you have to ask yourself those questions. Identifying talent, to be fair, is not difficult. Oh. It is not a difficult process. To be fair, it's moving them through the gates is the problem. Like moving them on. I don't think finding talent is hard to do. I mean, you can look at it on every field in this country. It's moving them along is the challenge. And that's where fundamentally our problem is. It's not so much in the identifying of talent. It's moving them along. And then once they're in this environment, it's then making sure we're putting the right talent on the field. Yeah. Not identifying it. There's talent everywhere. Right? I argue that maybe not all coaches can see a player that can knock the ball around. You see these videos of college scouts everywhere, like telling you how they scout their players, and there's a lot of really good videos about it, what they're looking for, and how the different body language and the way you set yourself up before you receive a ball, like all those things. Those are fundamental things that over time you just get better at. But identifying talent, I don't think that that's actually the problem. The problem for us is once we know there's talent, moving them through level to level to level, and then making sure we're putting those players who have that talent in the right places to be successful and managing that process. That's our issue here in this country. It is not, I think, fine. And again, the other part of this is we talk about is the money component, which means that there are players out there who have a shit ton of talent. They're never going to be seen because they don't have the money or the resources to get to a field to be seen in the first place. So those are our two fundamental problems at the lowest levels. And then, then again, the politics of soccer, which is also it's the politics of sports, but everywhere you go, there's politics in sports now. And that is preventing players who should be on a field from being successful. Because again, the question becomes this, and I'll put this back on our fans, our people who are watching this. Do we want talent on the field, regardless of who they are off the field? Do we care that the person maybe is a douchebag? Do we care that they're not the right? Do we care? Somewhere along the lines in this country, we started to really care about what people did off the field. I'm not talking about illegal. I'm not talking about being illegal and criminals. I'm talking about just being an ass. Got a lot of assholes out there. And that does, at least in today's sports, it does play a factor into whether or not they play, because the political correctness of the world that we live in, we're taking players off the field who should be on it. If you ever watched that Hope Solo documentary, it's a perfect example. You're trying to tell me that she wasn't the best goalkeeper at the time for U.S. Women's National? She was. But what was she? She was very vocal. She was obnoxious. Like, well, the team maybe didn't want her on the field. But I sit there and go, she was the best goalkeeper.
She was the best player available.
So she was the best. So do we care? I mean, do we care? I mean, at the end of the day, we ask this question about like high school soccer players. And these players come. If players want to win, then they shouldn't care about the player who wasn't there for the first 3 years. If the goal is to go win, then go win. Then let's not care. I'm just saying that at the highest level in this country, you're fighting for your country. Do you care that the player maybe not the best teammate, but will go out there and fight for 90 minutes and be awesome on the field, and then goes back to being Solo Joe after the game? I mean, I don't know the answer. If that answer is yes or no, but I feel like that's a conversation we should have. I mean, do you want the best player? Do you want the right player? Do you want the best teammate? Like, what is it we're looking for? At this point, I think we should take all three of them, throw them into a pot, and say, go figure it out. But I'm curious your thoughts, Nathan.
I mean, the name, a lot of the greatest athletes we've ever seen. Yeah, a lot of them are, I don't even know what a mean person, what a PG term would be.
Well, Deion Sanders is a great example.
Deion, MJ was regarded as being an ass. Kobe, Caitlin Clark is one of the most insufferable personalities when it comes to actually playing the game you've ever met in your life. I don't want to hear anybody in the media praise how great of a person she is anymore, because I actually know some people who have actually had to compete against her before, and she has a mouth on her, okay? But here's the thing. She's allowed to. She's allowed to, because she backs up everything that she says in the way that she plays, okay? Barry Sanders is a good example. There are a lot of people out there that, they perform amazing, but they're not great people, because they're so, either they know they're great, which again, in that instance, there's the difference between being a person who does all that talking and does all of that other stuff and is hard to work with and is high maintenance and then doesn't perform. Like I played against schools growing up, like even in the high school ranks, where it's like we would beat them by 50-something, and they would still be out there talking about my mother in the fourth quarter. Like, guys, like look at the scoreboard. You know what I mean? Like, actually do something if you want to say something. That's one thing. But if you're going to go out there and perform and be, really put the team on your shoulders and just go out and dominate, you can say what you want to say. That should not have any bearing whatsoever on whether or not you improve or you don't improve. So I think it has to do with the infrastructure of not just identifying talent, but I do think that plays a part in it. But figuring out, okay, can we be able to separate maybe a little bit of the personal and see if we can optimize professional, because those are things that you can, if you get them in the right setting. Like the truth is I'm never going to judge a kid who comes from a bad household, because you can't, because that is the environment he grew up around. Mom and dad maybe are in the picture and out of the picture. Maybe he's in a bad neighborhood. Maybe he's in a bad situation. There are a lot of great players who play sports at the highest levels in this country who really came from crap and had to grow up in the college game under these legendary head coaches who had been there for forever. But they invite that because good coaches are able to do something with that. Like I remember, like Draymond Green, I feel like is a perfect example of, like, the Michigan State basketball connection. Like when he got there, like he was raw, and he was just not really built to, handle himself for an entire game. And then he still gets to the professional level and he's still doing shots and trying to get people's heads. But the truth is that he was, raw and lost, and then Izzo took him under and he made him better and he made him a pro. It should not have any bearing on whether or not you get an opportunity to. Now, if you're insufferable and you're high maintenance and you're not good, well, we don't need you, right? But the greatest athletes we've ever seen play any sports, a lot of them were insufferable human beings off the field, off the court, whatever. A lot of people didn't like them. They didn't like them in practice. They didn't like them in their personal life. But darn, when they went out on that field, they made things happen. They made things happen. So I would certainly hope that doesn't have any bearing on whether or not we're getting guys up the ladder to higher levels. That certainly should not play a role. And if anything, as a coach, it's your job to figure that out. But that is on your shoulders to figure that out. How do we get the most out of this kid who might have some attitude issues? And again, at different levels, it's different stuff. Like if you're talking about high school, we're probably not talking about a kid that's, the God level, unless he is, then that's a little bit of a different story. But this is on the people who are in charge and the coaches doing their jobs in order to try to get the most toothpaste out of the tube, if you will, in that kind of situation. It absolutely should not hold anybody back.
No, and again, I just go back at the Gio Reyna situation, right? And obviously back during the World Cup, there's a lot of drama between Berhalter, the Reyna, and the Reyna family, and there's a lot of things probably in there that we'll never really truly know. But we've talked about this. I know Steve Besk even mentioned it in one of our previous shows about Gio Reyna being one of the better players, not getting a lot of time on the field. He has to embrace this substitution role that he has, and again, it's a youthfulness. I think there's an argument, obviously, about players have to earn their keep or earn their time, so to speak, right before they get on the field. And I don't disagree with that. I think that there should be something to be said about players who are younger trying to, earn their stripes, so to speak, right before they get out there and take on this role. And there might be some nuances to that, and it might help them from a longevity standpoint, understanding the pressures of the game. I also think there's something to be said that if you're the best player should be on the field. If they're going to give you the best chance to win. Now, that doesn't always quantify into results, but realistically it should. And so I'm always curious about that aspect of this. For the sake of time, I want to wrap up U.S. men's national team talk here today. I want to get into some other things here that happened on this weekend, but before we wrap this up, I just want to say this one final piece. This isn't like you can take a Band-Aid, and cover. We have an arterial bleed right now. All right, that's what we have in U.S. men's national team soccer. It's an arterial bleed. We are bleeding out. A Band-Aid ain't going to fix it. All right? Ain't going to fix it. Nope. We need it to be surgically fixed. Right? You need somebody to get in there, surgically figuring out how to solve this problem. Shut off the bleeding. Okay? Right. And I don't know who that is, but it needs to be fixed. So, or we're gonna bleed out, and it's gonna come to an end. And bleeding out means we don't fare well at all in the World Cup, right? We show up and we go terrible, over, At this point in time, it would not surprise me if we went 0-4 in the World Cup. It wouldn't surprise me if we didn't score a goal. So, that wouldn't surprise me at this point. And that's the sad part about all this is that here we are. We're talking 15 months before the World Cup. And while a lot can happen in the next 15 months. Man, I'll tell you, I'm not feeling good about it at all. And I wasn't feeling good really before. I was feeling good enough to the point that, I think they could get out of the group stage. I feel pretty confident that they could. And again, we don't necessarily know what those stages are, but I feel pretty confident that we would kind of know, that they might get out of the group stage. Use some of that home field, home country kind of, the emotional component of that, and get them maybe as far as a quarterfinal. Sure, winning it, monumental. Is it possible? Of course it is. Is it still possible? Yeah. I'm not optimistic about it. I will never, ever undermine or diminish the fact of what an emotional, psychological edge can give a team. Because to be fair, that is a real thing that can never be measured. So I'm never going to count a team out because of that. But talent, heart, will, hardworking, all those other intangibles that can't be measured only on a scoreboard at the end of a game, we don't have it. So, but let's talking about end of the game and talking about end of the weekend. Major Arena Soccer League, man. Major Arena Soccer League. Let's get into that, shall we? We have. I'm going to show it up here on your screen. Boom, there it is. Right. So look at this, man. San Diego currently has a 1-point lead over Chihuahua. Look at that, man. Still both undefeated at home. Again, look at these clinches now. Again, top 8 teams go. So right now, locked and loaded is Utica City and Milwaukee Wave, Baltimore and Kansas City, Chihuahua and San Diego. So you still got right here Tacoma Stars and Empire Strikers still in that 7-8. St. Louis Ambush is looking outside right now, 5 points behind 8th place. So I don't know how many games they've got left. I think this is their last week.
No.
I think.
Yeah, it was. And last weekend was kind of crazy for this league too. Utica City punched their ticket, late goal to win that one to get an opportunity to get in. So they clinched their spot this last week. It was the craziest goal it was almost the entire length of the actual field itself. It was impressive. But like I said, that's kind of my dark horse team. I know we've been talking about Ron Newman Cup and some of our going to it. I think it has a really good chance. Like I said, they have a top 3 road record of any team in the MASL, and all games are going to be played in San Diego. So it makes it a little bit tougher on the rest of the field. And I think it's a little ironic that it was supposed to be in San Diego the entire time, but obviously with the Sockers being in first, I feel like if it was a situation where the first place team gets to host, it would be like that anyways. It's not that way. It was going to be in San Diego the whole time. But the one thing I will say is that I think it does level the playing field a little bit that they're playing all the games in San Diego. I don't know what it is. And the last time I came down there and I did that game against the Chihuahua Savage, and what was it, 12-2 finish, the game that Dan and I did in the calling that one. I don't know what it is. If it's something in the water down there, if it's the way that building is constructed. They said the dimensions are a little bit different than most places that they play arena leagues. So I don't know what it is, but it just looked like they were just playing with San Diego. Like they just knew, it was almost like when you're playing a sports game, JT, and it's like you have to hit a series of buttons in order to get a cheat code or whatever. And now it's like you just can't be stopped. There's just there's a certain thing you can do in the game that it's just you're going to win regardless. It doesn't matter who you have out on the pitch. That's exactly where they were. I mean, it was 5 goals. Literally in a blink of an eye, there were 5 goals up on the board for Chihuahua. So the interesting thing is, if you want to scroll back to the top of those standings really quick, just so I can get a look at what's going on here, because they were far and away again the best team in the league, and they're looking to make it 3 straight. And obviously, San Diego was a team who had won the previous 2 before then. For them, it's it's going to be so important. Figure out how.
Hey, Nathan, Nathan, your audio is just so choppy, and I'm not sure what it is, but it is super choppy. I can only imagine. I mean, it's in my ear popping, so I'm not sure if it's an internet scenario or if it's like your audio interface.
Maybe better now.
No.
Does it sound better?
No. Yeah.
All right. Well, you go ahead. I'll try to work on this.
Awesome. So to clarify, just so everybody has an idea at home of MASL land, is that the first rounds will take place. So the first rounds of the playoffs will start on, I think it's April the 4th and go through the 6th. And they'll be played in San Diego. And then they will spit out to, your two finalists, right? And then they will play at their home and home. So it'll be a home and home. So, and I believe that'll be based on aggregate, is how that will work. So based on what we're seeing, it wouldn't surprise me seeing San Diego, Chihuahua again, home and home. And that'll be played at another time, home and home. And then we would ultimately maybe have a Chihuahua, San Diego kind of back and forth at their home environment. So which will be very interesting because again, San Diego great at home, so is Chihuahua. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. But that's a look at the MASL standings. We'll take a look at the schedule for the week, though. I know there's a game coming up here tonight. Tonight, St. Louis ambushed. That is tonight at 8 p.m. right here on the National Soccer Network. So we'll have that live kicking off here at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then we take a look at the full schedule this week. Apologize. St. Louis again tonight. We got Baltimore Blast versus Harrisburg Heat on Thursday. We got 3 games on Friday. Kansas City versus Utica City. Bunch of games on Saturday. We got 1-2 games on Saturday. Then we got 1-2-3. We have 5 games on Sunday. So a lot of games coming your way here on Sunday as well. So you can watch all those games on the National Soccer Network. So why not, right? But hey, man, the League for Clubs.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is a new league that we have. The entire league. Oh, something went wrong. Back home. I guess the standings not working right now. The connecting point. I guess the whole thing not working on their website. So we'll come back to that at another time. But yeah, Peter says restart your system. By the way, that's what Peter says. Go ahead and talk.
Just 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. Still choppy.
Yeah, choppy. You can restart your system. I'm not going anywhere.
All right.
But Nathan Wangler will be right back after we restart his system.
Quick break.
But hey, this is, and Peter's like very bad. So hey, if this is a great time for us to talk, about a lot of things going on the network. We have some cool announcements coming up here in the next couple of weeks, as it pertains, to leagues that we have relationships with, new advertisers and things like that. So this is the time to start talking about that. We're going to announce here later today a new relationship we have with the USL League 2 team here in Michigan, in Midwest United FC. We'll be handling all of their men's and women's games here coming up this spring and summer. So we're excited about that and having that partnership announced here this afternoon. But a lot of things cooking here right now on the platform, and a busy schedule ahead. If you're on our YouTube channel and you're going through all of our live events, I mean, we've got a ton coming up here, this weekend. And it's really cool. So couldn't be more excited about that. But yeah, I'm curious anyone's thoughts on the U.S. men's national team and how they're playing and where your thoughts are and headspace are at in regards to this. We've talked about it, me and Nathan here, the last 2 days. We'll continue to talk about it for sure over the next few weeks and months leading up to the World Cup. I'm curious where everyone else's heads are at right now. If you're tuning in, if you're watching on YouTube, in the comments here. If you're watching on Twitter, let us know in the comments on Twitter as well. that they won't come through our system here, but we can still check them out on Twitter, on the National Soccer Network, in our Twitter page there. So yeah, still waiting for Nathan to hop back in here. It's funny, I'm getting a phone call at the same time, but yeah, again, just a really busy schedule ahead for us. In regards to this weekend, League for Clubs, we'll have 5 games coming up here. I think Nathan might be back in. Let's go ahead and bring you back in. You there?
You got me?
I do.
All right.
That is way better.
Cool.
And I think for the first time in my life, I was speechless. I don't think I could figure out anything to talk about. It was weird.
No, but yeah, to circle back on what we were talking about, the MASL, like Chihuahua has not been strong on the road. Like, and it's one of the more bizarre split stats I think I've ever seen in my life, because the truth is they haven't lost a game at home since the last year. And it was a team that's not even in the league anymore. It's the Monterey Flash. That was the last team that has beaten that team on the road in Chihuahua. So that part alone to me is the craziest part. But then when they go on the road, like you were just showing it a minute ago, they only have 6 wins on the road. Utica City, by the way, has the equal record on the road. They're the 7th seed. So there's a lot of weird split stats coming into this postseason tournament that kind of might affect things at the end of the day. Towards the middle of the pack, though, obviously you got those 2 at the top. That's turning into, and I kind of phrased it when I was coming into that broadcast last time we were doing the game in the studio. Like, I'm like, this is the biggest rivalry in the MASL, which it is. But just outside of it, like, you also can't forget about Kansas City. Like, they made it to the championship last year. They have a pedigree. They can get back to that point. It'll just be how they operate, because they haven't done too well in San Diego. So that's, another part of the conversation. So they could certainly find themselves in there. Baltimore's obviously been looking better. Utica City is streaking, especially with the goals they put in late. So is that our rundown for the final games, or you're going back to the standings? Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to circle around on my point there, because I know I was making a point when my my equipment wanted to take a what. So, but the other part of it is like Chihuahua has created that massive goal differential, but the other side of it is they've also allowed 105 goals. I know that's the least amount, but it's because of how they do it. They attack in volume, right? They're the first team to cross 200 goals, and that's because they're so good at getting forward and they're so fast when they're playing at home. But I would almost be interested to see what the road stats are in terms of goals for, goals against, because I know it's pretty lopsided at home, but how they fare there on the road, not sure. But you can tell that they're streaking right now. San Diego's streaking right now. Obviously, KC is taking a little bit of a step back late in the season, but they've been consistently in that 3rd spot. So it's just a matter of, can they figure it out getting into the postseason? But yeah, so it's tricky for sure. But I know we still got to figure out a couple of other spots. But I don't think that the exciting part about it, as we get closer to the Ron Newman Cup, there's no guarantees in my mind. Like, one way or the other, I don't think any team is a guaranteed lock to go out and win that tournament. I still think there's a lot of parity. I still think we can have a lot of upsets. It'll be interesting to see if Tacoma can pull off that game against San Diego. I know they're at home, and they actually might end up facing off against San Diego in the first round if they're all able to sneak in. So it'll be a unique test. I know KC and Baltimore, that'll be a good test for Kansas City down the stretch. Utica City, I know their tickets already punched, but truth is, maybe with a couple more wins, they can find themselves out of that dreaded 7 to 8 spot. Because I feel like if you're in a position to get in the playoffs right now, what you don't want to be is in that spot, because then you got to play either Chihuahua or you have to play San Diego right up front. So that's a big opportunity for Utica City to kind of get out of that. And then obviously Chihuahua taking on Harrisburg. Harrisburg's been good at times, but like we said, at Chihuahua, it's I think I described it as a house of horrors, which is exactly what it has been for the Chihuahua Savage at home. I don't know what it is about that city. I don't know what it is about that stadium, but someone's got to beat them at some point. I don't know who will ever have the opportunity to do so. So yeah, as a look at our final games going into the playoffs, and it'll be a good time. We'll see how it all plays out. We'll see, where the cards fall, and there's superstars spread out all over the place. But offensively speaking, Chihuahua is your best team. San Diego is a really good defense, but there's a lot of other teams that I think could be dark horses in this tournament. And like I said, look out for Utica City FC because they're streaking at the right time, and never underestimate streaking at the right time. Like if you start playing well towards the end of the season, going into the postseason, like you talked about the emotional component of a team, especially at the right times of the year, that's certainly enough to start spurring you in the right direction if you're making those plays and you're winning those games late in the season. So I think they have a legitimate argument for being a team that could be a contender. But like I said, we'll just have to see how the cards fall.
That we will. Let's take a look here at the USL Championship, and obviously it's so early in the season, right? We're talking about 3 matches in, is what we're seeing right now, and you take a look at this, and Detroit City FC is right now sitting atop the table. They've played 3 games. They're undefeated, 2-1. They started off hot last year as well, going into that 2024 campaign. So this is a team that has had this where they start off hot, and they made the playoffs last year as well. But this is a team that, again, they've gone and they've won 2 and they've tied 1. Louisville City, sitting there at the top as well. They're also undefeated. Loudoun United, and Loudoun is a team that, again, last year kind of was a Jekyll and Hyde kind of a team last year. Indy 11 was very good last year. Pittsburgh Riverhounds have been good. North Carolina FC, right? So a lot of these teams are really good. But it's so early in the season. So it's so early to determine where this is going to shake up here in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
You got to bring me out to a Detroit City FC game one of these times. I keep hearing everybody I know tell me about what it's like to go out there and watch a game, what the environment's like. I got to be a part of that. Because I've seen the stadium, and I think I've done a game, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a UPSL game. I'm not sure what game it was there. I think it was a remote game, but it was that's where that stadium was, and I was doing it there, and the turnout, the energy looks really great. So you gotta hook me up one of these times. But yeah, it looks like they're off to a hot start, and to be expected.
Yeah, I mean, so I was with my microphone's always like slipping around on my mic. I don't understand it, but. Yeah, first off, the environment at Detroit City it's second to none. I've been to some really cool environments. I've been to a Columbus Crew MLS game that last year, not last year, 2 years ago. That was exciting. And I still have yet to make it to a U.S. men's national team or U.S. Women's national team game. I'd love to be able to do that. That's got to be something on my bucket list that I just haven't done yet. But yeah, I do think that there's something to be said about the environment, and Detroit City has done a great job of creating a really cool environment in which when you go there, you are immersed in anything and everything you could possibly imagine. Right. It's cool.
Yeah,
it's really, really cool.
Right. And it's like I said, I think the game of soccer really lives and breathes in the Midwest. And I know that there's a lot of talent all over the globe, and there's a lot of soccer fans that are obviously from this country and different parts of the world that really, really carry this game to heart. But it's when you get into the Midwest, like those pockets, like the Columbuses, the Cincinnatis, the Detroits of the world, they love it, and they love coming out for it, and they love supporting it. Like I remember watching the old highlights of the USA men's national team playing Mexico in Cincinnati, and like it's packed out. So the Midwest actually has some pockets of like some real passionate soccer fans, and so that's kind of what makes that environment so exciting. And that's, like I said, a big part of the reason why I would love to go see that Detroit City FC team. Not necessarily for the results or I would want to see the game, but just the fan interaction part of it too, and my favorite venues, and like I've used this term before, and I think I used it on that Chihuahua San Diego game when I was down there. Like I love like barns. I love old stadiums. Like those are the greatest in terms of venues and energy and everything like that. Maybe not the best bathrooms in the world, but who cares? You didn't really go there for the bathroom. You went there for the fan experience. So that's what I love about old stadiums, and clearly that place has a lot of charm to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that I've been to, I think, 4 or 5 Detroit City FC games in my lifetime, and all of them have their own varying degree of uniqueness. And I would tell you that if you are taking your young kids to this environment, that you be mindful that you're going to be hearing a lot of swearing, a lot of swearing. It is great. It's a great environment. We looked only at the Eastern Conference. This is the Western Conference right here. San Antonio FC, obviously atop the table right now. They played 3 games themselves. They've won all 3 of them. So only team in the league right now that has 3 wins. But your winners. So the Colorado Springs Switchback won the whole thing last year. They're currently 0-1-2. So that's an interesting start for them. But again, it's not. We saw this last year at the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, right? A team that very, very good. They started off down towards the bottom of the table, made their way up over time. So you'd expect the same thing to happen with Colorado possibly as well. But there's a look at your USL championships. Both East and Western Conference. We'll continue to highlight those each and every week here on the show, and try to do so on Mondays and Tuesdays. And then as we get closer towards Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we'll start to highlight upcoming matches and things like that for each of these leagues. At some point in time, we're going to start talking about maybe doing a second hour. I don't want to do that right now, mainly because I'm too tired. But there is going to have to be a conversation about maybe moving into a 2-hour segment, 2-hour show. That would be fun as well. But yeah, that's a wrap here on episode number 51. I do want to say this: we typically have Pete come in on Taco Tuesday and mention that we are the episode number and who that might signify. At some point in time, when we start getting into triple digits, which is going to happen here in the next 2 months, Nathan, we're not going to be able to do that anymore. So we're going to find another number. I'm assuming we could look at
the League of Clubs roster I got a few days ago had a number 100 on it. So at least we can dedicate that guy to episode number 100 if we'd like. I don't know if that was a typo. He might have just been number 10 and they added an extra 0 on the end just for good measure. But
it is rare to see in the 1,800 games I've been a part of in the last 3.5 years. There have been one other occurrence where a player wore 100 on the field, and during that game we did not have a name for that player. So what we decided to call that player was Mr. 100. So so Mr. 100 did score a goal in that game too. So it was kind of cool how we were able to call Mr. 100. But
that's great.
But yeah, so it's only happened one other time. So if that player actually made their way onto the field on Saturday and you had a chance to call it, that would have been the second time in the history of our network, our platform.
It happens, man. I don't know how you fit all those numbers on the back of someone's jersey, but you can try. I guess if you want, but that would be a pain if we went into triple digits.
We are going to bring in guests.
Yes.
Yeah, we are going to start doing that. The biggest challenge for us is this time period, right? So the 9 o'clock in the morning. So what we are going to be doing a lot of pre-recorded conversations. We're currently in the process of that right now with League for Clubs out on the west side of the country, on the West Coast. So we're working on interviews for that. So interviews will come. They might just be pre-recorded and not live. Again, our 9 a.m. Eastern is going to be a hindrance for a lot of the people we talk with on a regular basis. So, but either way, we're excited to keep doing this. That is a wrap though here on episode number 51. Let's talk about who wore the jersey 51. Randy Johnson, right? Right. Who else wore
Ichiro
Suzuki, right? Ichiro, right?
Fast.
Very Hall of Famer, right? Hall of Famer, right?
True.
Yeah, we had 51. Dick Butkus also wore the number 51. So a lot of famous people, athletes wearing that number 51. But that's a wrap here on this show on this Tuesday, on this Taco Tuesday. Jonathan Turner alongside Nathan Wangler. Be back here tomorrow, same time, same place, 9 a.m. Eastern on Inside the Game on the National Soccer Network. Don't forget to subscribe, like us, and share this with your friends and family. Head over to nationalsoccernetwork.com for more news and articles related to all things soccer across this great country. But for the rest of us here at the National Soccer Network, have a great rest of your Tuesday. Be back at it again tomorrow, same time, same place, right here on the National Soccer Network. This has been a presentation of the National Soccer Network.